In a small town nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, there lived a man named Daniel. He was a successful businessman, but his achievements had blinded him to the needs and emotions of those closest to him. His wife, Susie, was pregnant with their third child. Life had become increasingly challenging for her, as she tried to manage the household and care for their two young children. Daniel, however, was oblivious to the strain he was putting on his family. Consumed by his work and personal desires, he grew distant and often took out his frustrations on Susie. The stress of his mistreatment weighed heavily on her, especially as her pregnancy progressed. Whenever Daniel came home from work, he would always find fault and accuse Susie of her inability to manage the home. He would always tell her how the living room was in a mess, and how she took long to prepare meals. He couldn't understand how hard it was for Susie to look at their two young children, and manage house chores while pregnant. Daniel always told her that pregnant women at his workplace did their jobs just fine, and that he thought that Susie was merely making excuses. Daniel was not only mean to his wife, but also to his children. He always belittled his 10-year-old son's interest in art and fashion, asking him to pursue more serious hobbies. Daniel loved himself so much that, one day, when he took his 8-year-old daughter for a school fun day in a neighboring town, he left her and went to a beer with friends. He then stayed for hours without showing up, leaving the poor girl stranded and alone in an unfamiliar environment. One day, Daniel told his wife that he would be away for 3 weeks, for an out-of-town work assignment. Susie would later realize that Daniel had not gone to work, instead he had gone for a solo vacation, leaving her alone with their children. Oblivious of the mounting responsibilities he had left his wife, he vacationed in luxury resorts, dined in high-end restaurants and indulged in lavish spending. He justified his extravagance saying that he deserved to enjoy his money. He blamed Susie for not having an income, and depending on him to foot all the bills. Back at home, Susie struggled to manage everything on her own. The weight of Daniel's absence and the mounting bills pushed her to the breaking point. She realized that she deserved more than the mistreatment she had endured for so long. When Daniel returned from his vacation, he was met with shock. The house was quiet and empty. Efforts to reach Susie were futile. In the weeks that followed, his once warm and cozy home became cold and inhospitable because managing his day job and house chores was a challenge. He had always thought that Susie was the reason he wasn't happy, but even when she left, he was still the same old Daniel, bitter, cruel and sad. Realizing his mistakes, he pleaded with Susie to come back, but she could hear none of it. Susie was determined to build a new life for herself and her children, away from Daniel's cruelty and selfishness. Alone and facing the consequences of his actions, Daniel had no choice but to reflect on the person he had become. He decided to attend therapy to confront his deep-seated issues, with the hope that he would be a better husband and father in future.